You can see why these people win Nobel Prizes. Our next speaker, of course, needs very little introduction, but I'll do a short one. Jody Williams, of course, won the Nobel Peace Prize in '97 for her work with landmines, and now is also doing the Nobel Women's Initiative. There's a conference coming up soon, and she's invented a new art form, which is Nobel Laureate stand-up. Please, Jody.
Hi. All right, people. Aren't we sick of this after all these hours? Yes. I know, I'll take my shoes off. I just didn't want to stick them in people's face. If anybody is sick to death of listening to people, feel free to leave. I will not be insulted. I'm serious. I won't try to have somebody take pictures of you leaving me and abandoning my brilliance. Never. No, I want to just share one. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, thank you. I also would, are there any people here who would like to ask questions instead of just sitting there silently absorbing all this brilliance? I don't mean my own, I meant the entire couple of days of brilliance. I know I'm exhausted.
What question would you like us to ask you?
None, anything you want to ask, there's no, And even if I think it's dumb, I'll kind of act polite. All right? You want to ask a question? Is this thing on? Is this going to work? Yeah. Wait. We're going to go. I saw her first. You're third.
What was the main thing?
Can you please?
What was the main thing that inspired you?
Jesus Christ, I got to be Oprah. Apparently, I have to be Oprah.
First of all, I have enjoyed you absolutely thoroughly.
Thank you.
And would hang around another hour or two just to hear more of you.
Isn't that nice?
In hearing your story and reading in the little booklet about what you've done, what was the one thing that made you just completely change your life and go after this with such vigor?
This?
Your work.
I went after the Peace Prize. No, I'm joking. Anybody who tries to receive the Peace Prize shouldn't get it. It's not about, you know what I mean? It's not a contest. It's about doing the right thing even when nobody else is looking. It's true. Look, you've heard me mention my brother a couple of times who was born deaf, and he was born deaf in 1947. I'm 60 years old, he's 63. And he happened to be born in a time when the philosophy of teaching the deaf was to force them into the hearing world. We were not allowed to learn sign language in the belief, the ridiculous belief that, deaf people would somehow magically learn to communicate, even though they couldn't hear. My brother never heard a sound. Mom had German measles in the first trimester. So he's just never heard a thing. So how the hell could he talk, So instead of forcing him into the hearing world, he was further isolated. And we made up a rudimentary, sign language. And it was, I can't think about, honestly, I cannot think about that much because it sends me into a, I don't know, bummer. And people made fun of him. Kids, we've talked a lot in the last couple of days about bullying and, all the stuff. I mean, I've been a bully. I used to beat up my brother and sister because I could. Not the older one, the two younger ones. But, they were mean to him in particular because he could not hear, he could not defend himself. So my family defended him or tried. And that's when I first wanted to beat people up outside of the family. I wanted to beat up people who were mean to my brother. And then when people wouldn't stand up for themselves, I started, little bit by little bit, because you will not believe this, but I was terrified of authority, absolutely couldn't stand to be yelled at. If somebody yells at me, I clam up, I get all nervous. And then, whenever people or people somehow didn't have a voice or didn't have the courage to use their voice, I wanted to use mine to help them. And then came Vietnam. And all of my beliefs about the mythologies of America. It's a great country, don't get me wrong, but, we got a lot of problems, as we have heard from many speakers in the last couple of days. and Vietnam and the civil rights movement and the reemergence of feminism, sex, drugs, rock and roll, of which I partook none of course, because I am a Nobel Laureate, and don't I seem like Mother Teresa? Thank you. So it was Vietnam. I mean, my first protest was in 1970. And then, you know, I just kept learning. My first motivations were really stopping U.S. intervention, and then it's evolved a little bit more. I'm not the Dalai Lama, as you can tell, but more along, I'm not totally nonviolent, as you could probably tell. But, you know, that's sort of it in a nutshell. I'm still learning like everybody. And by the way, I am not ready to be part of the last generation. He's older than me, so he can be.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me a chance to ask you a question. Whoa, I hate hearing my voice over a huge amplification system. Anyway, I actually read about when different Nobel Prize laureates won the prize, some of whom were already famous, and it sort of just elevated their work, or brought them a little more attention. But some of them were far more obscure. And with all due respect, I wasn't aware that you were a Nobel Prize laureate until yesterday, actually. Well, how did your life? I'm not nonviolent either, as you can see. No. How did your life and your work change, if you don't mind me asking, after you won the prize?
No, I don't mind at all. The already famous didn't need it. And I could get into a big discussion about the prize, but I'm not going to, in the interest of time and trying to be polite in public. I am an introvert. And I think people have a misconception what an introvert is. It does not mean one cannot be articulate in public. It does not mean that you cannot put forth an idea, and it does not mean that you cannot act. Many actors are introverts, by the way. They get into other... when I ran the Landmine campaign, what my job, how I saw my role was absolutely coordinating. That was what I was, the coordinator. And the whole point of my work, which I think I might talk about tomorrow, was making sure that every single organization in every country that was part of our Landmine campaign, and we grew from 2 NGOs with a staff of 1, which was me, to 1,300 in about 80 or 90 countries within the space of 5 years. Yeah, it was awesome. It really was awesome. Yeah. But I really saw my role as making sure that the Cambodia campaign, for example, knew what the French campaign was doing and knew what the campaign in Afghanistan was doing, because information is power. And if you really want to work in coalition, I've heard a lot of people talking about working together in community to change the community. You have to be willing to share the information and share the power. And that's what I did. And it really made a huge difference in our ability to change the world on this one little issue, which was banning landmines, and then this one, banning cluster bombs. But it was about that. And then all of a sudden, the day after the Nobel Prize, and it was given to me as an individual and the international campaign to ban landmines, all of a sudden, the only person in the world that the media wanted to talk to about landmines was me. And it made me absolutely, peacefully enraged. I was really furious that all of a sudden, all of these people I had worked with and who had talked to the press all the time, because I didn't care, you know, and there were some organizations that had a big press machine, like Human Rights Watch, which was one of the founders. They have great press ability. And so they wanted to talk about it, let them talk. I don't care. If the Afghanis want to talk so it can help the deminers raise money, cool. But then all of a sudden, none of these people were relevant anymore to the media. I mean, certainly they're, you know, and all of a sudden the only one they wanted to talk to was me, and it really infuriated me. And, you know, a lot of people thank me for what I do, and all that, I get, as some of you have noted, I get extremely uncomfortable with that. I mean, I just do what I do. I do. I don't know why, it just happened, you know? And young people say to me, I want to grow up to be like you, and I'm thinking, holy shit, don't. No, please, be way better than me. Don't waste all the years. I was 31 years old before I, re-entered activism, working to try to stop U.S. intervention in Central America. I think of all those years I lost. And I think of, so many opportunities for people today, young people, to learn service learning and all of that. And I think, whoa, if I had known that when I was 18, maybe I would have done even more. But then on the other hand, maybe I would have burned out at 20 and I would be, working on Wall Street. Not likely. I can't add, subtract, multiply, or divide.
Thanks, Jody. Thank you, Jody. I just have a question. So you give to everybody. It seems like you give a lot to the world. What do you give to yourself?
Ooh. Ooh.
I'm going to just play on your heartstrings. Yesterday was my 10th wedding anniversary, and where am I? Not with my husband. It's true. This is giving to myself. As His Holiness said, I don't do this because I'm selfless. I do it because I believe it's the right thing to do. I do it because most of the time I can look at myself in the mirror and think, you screwed up today, but you're still trying to do the right thing. You're trying to make the world better for other people, and just as he was saying, especially in the end, if you make it better for other people, you're making it better for yourself. I don't do it just because I want everybody in the world to like me or any of it. I don't care if people like me, when that really surprises people. I don't believe my life is a popularity contest. If you don't like me, you can't come to my house for dinner. I don't care. What I want you to do, you don't even have to agree with me, of course, but I hope you listen and think. That's all. Critically think. That's all. I lift weights. I do yoga. I cook. I actually, with my stepdaughter, wrote a book called Ingredients for Peace, and it is a cookbook it's cool. And money goes to the Nobel Women's Initiative and these people. So I do that kind of stuff. I love my husband. I love my 2 cats and a dog. And I read. I'm a furious reader. When I'm like having wicked PMS and the other person. I know, we Nobel laureates are not afflicted with illness of any sort because suddenly you're like almost a goddess, not His Holiness. I am now menopausal, so I'm not afflicted, but I had PMS so bad that she had an identity and her name was Sparky. And if you imagine Sparky on top of this, imagine. Is that like frightening or what? But when Sparky would attack viciously, I'd curl up in bed with a pile of books and just read for like 3-4 days until she subsided. It took her it really took the bitch that woman a couple of, like a week or so to go. But yeah, I read mostly. I write, written a little poetry. Yeah. Who? Wait a minute, I'm old and deaf. Not as bad as my brother, but I have a hard time. Yes? Do I believe you young people can promote peace? Absolutely. Am I doing anything to prove it? Is that what you said? Yes. I think I've mentioned a few times an organization called Peace Jam. Hi, Dawn. Dawn Engel is the founder of Peace Jam, along with her husband, Ivan Suvanjiev, who was a punk rocker. He was. Was he the, what was, I forget, doesn't matter. The Ramrods. Hello. And he's handsome. So he had a vision. He lived in the ghetto area of Denver, where Latino kids, you know, he saw all these little kids, and then all of a sudden when they got to be teens, he saw bulges in it. It wasn't their hormones, it was guns. And he started talking to them, and they didn't even know who the mayor of Denver was. But they knew who Mandela was. They knew who Tutu was. They knew His Holiness. And he said, why do you know these people? You know, they aren't even from here. And the kids actually said, because they stood up to the man. And so then Yvonne and Dawn had this idea that if they could get Nobel laureates to work with young people, such as yourself, and help young people believe that what they think and what they say matters, it would be a good thing. And the first one they approached was His Holiness, and he said he wouldn't do it alone, that he had to have a bunch of his Nobel laureate posse around him. So we are the posse of the, you know, Dalai Lama. And Dawn and Yvonne, and thousands of kids throughout this country and in other countries in the world have been part of Peace Jam. And it just rocks. When I was talking earlier about, you know, the kids looking at me, the Goths and the Latinos, they were part of Peace Jam. They were a Peace Jam group. There was a gangbanger group that joined Peace Jam, and then they became gangbangers for peace. I mean, no, and they brought a truce to their high school. I mean, it's really awesome. I fundamentally believe in the voice of young people. I try to work with them as much as I can. I don't have any of my own, but that's, you know, by choice. That's so I can work with you. And not like, I'm not going there. Yes? I have one of those problems of issues of self-censorship and no filters.
I understand that the United States is one of the only major countries that did not sign the Landmine treaty ban. Is that true? And what's your comment?
Well, it's not just the U.S., it's the U.S., Russia, China, India, Pakistan. But the biggest bummer initially was the U.S. simply because the first country in the world to stop exporting anti-personnel landmines was the United States. And they did it in 1992, and it was actually under the auspices of Senator Patrick Leahy from the great state of Vermont. And this was during the Clinton administration, and it was the hope of Leahy that the administration would embrace the leadership that the Senate had shown and then, you know, lead the world to a ban on landmines. Unfortunately, Mr. Clinton, I need water, caved in to the military. Quite honestly, he was ready to join the mine ban movement. I can't leap up, I can leap down. Clinton was on the verge of signing, and then there was a meeting of the SINCs. Do you all know what the SINCs are? The regional commanders, you know, Southcom, Centralcom, this com, that com. And a couple of them gave him serious grief about giving up landmines, not because the United States needs them for defense, obviously, but because they were concerned about the slippery slope. That if, you know, they gave in to ordinary people, you know, and banned the weapon, what would come next? You know, we'd go after their Abrams tanks. And we would if we could, but so he backed down. Clinton abdicated his responsibility as the commander-in-chief of the military of the United States of America, allowed the military to make foreign policy, and did not sign, which to me is a threat to democracy, an abomination. And I said that the day of the Nobel And the status quo? Sure, whatever you want to label it. I mean, it sucked. But I said that the day of the prize, you know, the day of the announcing of, but I went overboard and called him a weenie. Oh, it was on the front page of the New York Times. Are you kidding? I was dressed like this, essentially, barefoot. And he still doesn't like me just because of that word. He yelled at me in the White House over it. Not over weenie, but over the issue, that we embarrassed him. And I thought, get over yourself. This is not about the President of the United States. This is not about the United States. This is about people in 80, 90 countries around the world living in minefields, for God's sake. What has this got to do with you, Bill Clinton? What has this got to do with you, U.S. military? You know, when Mr. Obama came into office, I actually had hope that the first thing he would do would be send the Mine Ban Treaty to Senate for ratification. It would have been no cost at all, because the U.S. has not used those weapons since the first Gulf War in 1991. We have not exported since '92. We haven't produced since the mid-'90s. And we have destroyed millions of our stockpile. In other words, we're already obeying the treaty. What would it have cost to join the treaty? And match, you know, we keep hearing about you got to match the words with action. You know, about leading the world, multinationalism, reemergence, and we're going to, you know, ban nukes. And I'm thinking, you can't even ban landmines. You're talking to me about ban nukes? Forget about it. Forget about it. I want to see action. I don't care what the hell you say. Who else?
My name is Shashi, and as a Nobel laureate, I'm curious, what are your feelings about Gandhi never having received a Nobel laureate?
The Nobel Committee itself will talk about errors in judgment, and Gandhi is one of the biggest. When the campaign got the prize in '97, we were at a, you know, you get to go, you do a ceremony, and you have dinner, and Mom and Dad were there, and it was awesome. And they were discussing errors, and they talked about Gandhi. And they said that in the estimation at the time, they were concerned that if they gave Gandhi the Nobel Peace Prize, it would incite violence in India and result in civil war. Like what they were thinking about, I don't know. But that was their logic. On the other side, they gave the Peace Prize to Henry Kissinger. Which in the estimation of some, he is, in many countries, honest to God, there is a warrant for him as a war criminal. I'm not kidding. He has a lawyer who advises him as to where and where he should not go because he could be arrested, as Pinochet was in the UK. When he was awarded, it was with him and Le Duc Tho of Vietnam. Le Duc Tho refused the prize because he knew it was ridiculous. You know, the war had dragged on for years under the tutelage of Mr. Kissinger and others. So, you know, they make errors. They're human. But it doesn't diminish like Martin Luther King or Mandela or Tutu or His Holiness or whoever.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Martinez, and I'm a college student in Essex County College. We're talking about service learning and the youth, and we're talking about these really beautiful ideas about peace and about bringing people together and letting people understand that we all belong. And while we say that the people that are coming to this conference come from different socio-political, from a a big socio-political spectrum. I think that most of the people here are middle class or upper professionals who had nonprofit organizations or who have other professions. Now, being that we are aware of our capacity and our ability to bring this change and to bring this peace, I want to ask you the question, but I also want to put this seed in the minds of the rest of the people here. How do we touch the minds of those who are disenfranchised, those who are poor, those, especially the youth who are struggling in urban cities across the country and across the world to just make it another day, that are too worried about their daily struggles to worry about making peace and about trying to get along with other people? How do we reach them?
I think that the people who spoke today and yesterday talked a lot about that. From my perspective, it is bringing about a change in understanding about what means security. You know, every study in the world talks about what makes a nation great is the level of education of its people. And and I look at this country, which is supposedly the greatest in the world, and I look at what's happening to education. You know, how much did we hear from some of these panels about what's happening to education? I myself said, 50% of our budget goes to defense. I refuse to call it that, to the military. More than every other country in the world combined. Doesn't that blow your mind if you think about more than every other country, more than China, Russia, India, Pakistan, all of them combined? It means communities getting to, like somebody was saying today, it was the mayor. How many people, he won by tens of thousands of votes, and yet when the school board is elected, it's a couple thousand votes. It means people taking responsibility to be part of the change. Hope is not a strategy for change. Wishing change will come is not a strategy for change. Expecting, when you elect a government that talks about hope, that change will come, is not a strategy for change. Change happens, it happens when we care enough to get up and do something. And somebody in the last panel was talking about, I can't remember how they said it, so I'll say just how I say it. Sometimes I think we're so overwhelmed when we think about what's happening in the Middle East and Pakistan and Latin America and the climate, and I know I do. Sometimes I just want to quit. I want to retire completely to Vermont. There was a time I wanted to shovel horse manure. I had a horse. I just wanted to do physical labor and no longer think, because it was too painful to constantly think about everything that's wrong in the world. However, if each of us does a little bit to change the one thing you care about, I care about a jillion, but I can't do them all, right? I wish if I were the empress of the universe, the world would damn be better overnight. But I'm not. So what can I do? Okay, I did landmines. I don't do them anymore. Now I do something else. But, I don't care what you do. It doesn't have to be banning cluster bombs. It doesn't have to be worrying about nukes or the killer robots we're developing, which will be able to kill people without a human being in the loop. New technology. The drones, I don't know if you follow the drone attacks. Those are the Model T of the robotic weapons that are being developed in the US today, but that's another issue. I care about that one a lot. I'm working on that one. But if you care about education in your community, get up off your butt and go and run for the school board if you think they're doing it wrong, or at least go vote, or go mobilize your community to vote. It doesn't mean you have to be a full-time activist. You know, I have said so many times to people, imagine if everybody here, I mean, I assume there has to be some sense of wanting to see difference in the world if you're here. If everybody here even volunteered 1 hour a month at some organization of your choice, can be on the climate, it can be on lesbian, yeah, I have to get it down because my friends yelled at me because I don't know it right. But if that's the issue that really gets you upset, volunteer for that. If it's inequality between men and women, volunteer for that. I don't care. Just do it. And if you don't like the group, find another one. When I was starting out as a volunteer, back when I was in my 20s, it was kind of hard. We didn't have Google and the internet. There is no excuse. You know, you just Google what groups are working on X. You get 7 million of them. Right? And then you have to discern which ones might be credible and which aren't, and you go and you volunteer. And if you don't like them, go to another one. I did that when I started working on El Salvador. I volunteered for quite a few months with an organization. The people were fine, but our philosophy about change in the region was not the same, so I went to another place. But I didn't quit because that particular attempt didn't work. There's nothing magic about it. Just sitting on your ass is not a strategy. Get up and do something. When I sit on my ass, it spreads and it goes to sleep.
I just want to say one quick thing.
Hello, I'm Kamika Bennett, and I'm also a student from Essex County College. I just want to tell you, on behalf of everyone, I'm confident in speaking that we really appreciate what you do, and thank you so much. I'm like a new fan, so. Thank you. My question is, you were just speaking about Bill Clinton and President Obama, and I want you to the thing is, I feel like they're just now titles. We can't really criticize the fact that our democracy is this and our democracy is that. I don't even really think that we are living in a democracy when the corporation and the military have overtaken our voices and our land. This is our land, and we don't even get a say anymore. So I just want you to expand on your feelings about all of these things right here. Thank you.
Again, it goes back to if we don't think this is a democracy, or I mean, it's a democracy of sorts. It's better than some other places for sure. It has potential to be massively awesome. I wouldn't stay here in this country and work for it if I didn't believe it. I can go live anywhere. I really can. The one good thing about the Nobel Prize, it'll take you anywhere you want to go. I stay here because I do believe in the values that this country still believes it believes in. But it quite doesn't. I mean, I was talking the other day about my state has started legislation to prohibit the ability of a corporation to be considered as a human being. To me, that's a fundamental step in reclaiming democracy here. If every single state in the United States disallowed corporations to be considered individual human beings, then you could amend the Constitution or whatever you have to do to overturn that ridiculous Supreme Court decision. And then, on top of that, every state should legislate so that elections have to be paid for by public money. I mean, again, it's pretty simple if you think about it. It's really simple. How do we make it happen? Enough people in enough states have to participate in bringing about that change. And it doesn't have to be a jillion. You know, I told you when we started the Landmine campaign, it was 2 NGOs and me, and then we were 6 NGOs. And then we were 30, and then we were 400, and then we were you know? Margaret Mead, I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Never underestimate what a small group of people can do to change the world. It's true. Imagine, because so many people do nothing, if a few people get up and organize, you really can shake up the world. I mean, that's what politicians count on, to be quite frank. They count on either the fact that most people don't care about voting, except for their core constituents, right? The right wing and the pseudo-left wing. Yeah, we don't have a left in America. And then, after people have voted or not, then they really care. I mean, what they really expect is you do absolutely nothing until the next election. Is that not true? You know, what has happened to citizenry? When I was a kid in Vermont in the 60s, I was born in 50. When I was growing up and going to, you know, grade school and high school, we had to learn civics. Do you even know what it is? I mean, we had to learn what, you know, how the government supposedly functioned. I'm cynical. It's okay, you can laugh as much as you want, I try. 1 minute, young lady. We had to learn about that, and we had to learn about being an active citizen. Now they don't teach that. It's much easier to have a nation of Stepford citizens. And I am quoting a colleague, I cannot claim invention of that fantastic term, Stepford citizenry in our country. Yes? Do you want to ask a question? Do you want to hold the microphone? Okay. What's your name?
Dante.
Dante. The Inferno.
Do you think everybody who got the Nobel Peace Prize deserved it?
No. No, I think many of us do. But not all of them. And a lot of people who do deserve it didn't get it.
I'm from Texas. We do teach civics, but I'm not real sure how accurate it is. I know. I met you once at a Peace Jam thing.
Guns to school.
Oh, I don't even want, no, don't. We're not starting that. Yeah, Texas legislature has decided that it's safest for college campus